Greetings, fellow Earthlings. My name is Zach,
And I'm Jessica.
and this is
High Level Hairesy.
Question everything. Without the question, how can you have the answer? Wisdom comes from within. This is High Level Hairesy.
What if everything people are calling spiritual awakening is actually just your brain shutting off the part that tells you who you are? And what if that's not a bug, but the feature?
Millions of people are now turning to psychedelics for healing, clarity, and connection. But are they finding truth or just experiencing a chemically altered reality that feels like truth? Join us as we ask the question, are psychedelics right for me? A deep dive into plant medicine. But before we get on with all that juicy information, let's take our breath together so we can get on the same wavelength and you can drop into this moment, get your listening ears on. You don't want to miss any of this episode. So I will count you off. It'll be inhale will be your 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold for 2, and then we will sigh it out. There we go. So here we go. Inhale. 2, 3, 4. Hold 2. And exhale. 2, 3, 4. Lovely. Doesn't that feel better?
It does.
It really does. Even when your exhale hits my heart chakra. It's amazing what it does for the body and the nervous system.
It is. Should breathe more.
Should breathe more. So we would like to give a little disclaimer that we are not giving medical advice and we are not telling you to go deep into the forest and down some magic shroomies. We're just giving you some information, some background, our personal stories with plant medicines, and maybe it has been calling you because there are a lot of benefits. But before we talk about the benefits, let's go into what psychedelics / plant medicines are.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. So we hear plant medicine and it sounds ancient and sacred, which to me, it is ancient and sacred.
It is. All right. So psychedelics are simply substances that alter perception, mood, and cognition. Often called what we've already said today, plant medicine. Another name is entheogens, which just means to generate something that generates the divine within.
Ugh. Sold.
Yeah, I like that. I want to start calling it. I'm going to go do an entheogen ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
People will be like, what?
Mm-hmm.
Entheogen.
Yeah, it sounds even better than plant medicine.
It does. A lot of people don't know what it is. I've had some conversations with some clients and such recently, and a lot of the reactions were like, what's plant medicine?
Mm-hmm. I got a lot of blank stares when I mentioned.
Blank stares or questions immediately like, oh, what's that? But most of them were like genuinely curious.
Oh, yeah.
Like, not like, oh God, plant medicine, shaman, ceremony.
It's a plant because a lot of them, they're not all psychedelics
are
plant medicine.
Oh, you're saying not all are plant medicine. Okay.
Yeah, not all are plant medicine and not all are synthetic. Some psychedelics and come from the earth, natural. That's what I prefer to stick with. And then you've got your synthetic lab grown
lab grown
psychedelics, and we'll go into what each of those categories and what comes from what. And
just for you listening, have an open mind about the things that open your mind when listening today. I just had that thought.
So why do you think that almost all ancient cultures have some version of a psychedelic or plant medicine?
My answer to that would be, I think the thing that just came to mind was because God put them everywhere.
So because, as it says up there, to generate the divine within.
Right. And I think God put them everywhere, and that's why all cultures have had some form of psychedelics or hallucinogens or what have you. They've been used in indigenous ceremonies throughout time, immemorial, shamanic rituals, religious initiations, and we'll get more into like shaman stuff later in the conversation. Talk about a cool shaman we know. Obviously, this is nothing new. It's been around in one version or another, one form or another, for thousands of years, as far as we can tell, recorded history, and probably before that. So what's new, though, is how fast it's coming back into mainstream culture. I mean, like, it's especially even just in comparison to, I was going to say like 50, 60 years ago. Well, actually longer than that. But like even 10 or 20 years ago, it's much more prevalent now. I mean, you just hear more about it. You hear news, or I do at least. I see news articles about, this study was done on psilocybin, this study was done on this, and we'll also get more into that later about different studies that have been done and how they're utilizing it in a clinical setting for people.
And I think, in a nutshell, it kind of makes you, to me, what I have felt personally is like filters being removed, or like seeing in HD.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there's some brain information that goes along with that we'll discuss.
There is, but like you and I had talked about recently, yesterday or the day before that or something, I've heard quite a few people say that what you see on some psychedelics, what you feel, what you see is actually more like real life. And it's just taken off your filter, because your brain has a filter. There's a filter there that filters everything you see and feel and hear. It filters it. And I don't think, I agree, that it takes the filter off. It pulls back the veil, at least for a period of time.
And I think, you mentioned that it's getting bigger now, or more mainstream. And I do feel like, back in the 70s, they were probably hitting those psychedelics pretty hard. But I feel like the usage, the purpose, the intent has shifted. A lot of people like utilize these for healing, for digging out trauma, for experiencing the divine, for having that closer connection. I feel like I end up getting messages, and that
Absolutely.
might be that everything else falls away and you can really hone in on that. But I believe that it thins the veil between our realms, but between the spiritual realm and the physical realm. And I mean, sounds like we're doing psychedelics all the time. We're not. Like,
we're really not. It's just a point of
utilize
interest.
that for special times that we feel called, because especially the plant will call you almost, and it starts presenting.
Mm-hmm.
But so let's get into
go through some, just real quick, the major categories, and we're going to go into each one of these briefly, but I'm going to go over just some of the bigger ones, and some of the natural or actual plant-based psychedelics would be ayahuasca, which comes from the Amazon. That's one of the it's considered one of the most powerful, most potent in the world. Psilocybin, aka mushrooms, magic mushrooms. Those are kind of global, but I've seen that maybe they originated somewhere over in the Middle East, I believe, but I might be wrong. Or no, South America, Central America. Anyways, peyote and or mescaline, that was pretty big with the Native Americans, so that originates from North America. And then iboga. Iboga is from Africa. Iboga is actually the plant or the root name. I don't remember the full Latin name, but ibogaine is what they would call it, like what you actually take when you take it. And then those are all plant-based. And then you have a few synthetic or lab-based LSD, aka acid, that was developed in Switzerland, excuse me. MDMA, I'm not sure where that was developed, but it was in a lab. MDMA, also known street name ecstasy, X, Molly, and ketamine. Ketamine that's a pretty heavy one. That one is used quite heavily in clinical settings, and we'll also talk about that later. So there's kind of a rundown of some of the major categories, or excuse me, the major players. There are other ones out there, but like I would venture to say they're variations of these. So, for example, like with psilocybin mushrooms, that's what most people, when they take mushrooms, they typically are taking psilocybin. There is Amanita muscaria, though. Mm-hmm. That's the one that you guys all see on pictures, especially old religious art. It's the red top mushroom with all the little white dots on it. You also see it on a lot of Christmas decorations and such. So that's another conversation. Mm-hmm. Why do those mushrooms show up in religious art with like Jesus and people like that, and also all over Santa Claus, Christmas type stuff? That's a fun conversation. I have experience
with mushrooms and Jesus.
Yes, I think a lot of people have. So nature versus lab, but the brain reacts in surprisingly similar ways.
Which I feel like because most things in a lab are made to mimic that which nature brings. And,
right.
So those are like, oh, this did this in the brain. Let's create this in the lab. And, just like diamonds. I mean, diamonds come, from nature, and then they're like, oh, let's grow a diamond in a lab. And all our medicines and pharmaceuticals, the majority of them stem from plant medicine originally.
Right. But
some majority,
now,
but
yeah.
So
humans have used these for thousands of years, obviously, and for various different reasons, like we said earlier, most of them in ritual settings or ritualistic type settings. So now they're re-entering modern society as therapy or different forms of therapy. So it's interesting that it goes from a more ritual type setting to a clinical and therapeutic setting.
Well, because they're finding that it opens up, it allows you to step away from that filter and open up to that which typically scares you. And when you're using these as a therapeutic, you always need a guide.
Yeah.
I mean,
we've
been there. Yeah. I'll just briefly tell a quick story about, I had heard that a therapeutic dose of mushrooms was 7 grams. I was
thinking of.
Yeah, 7 grams. And I was like, I want to do a therapeutic dose. And I'm like, Zach, we're doing 7 grams of mushrooms each.
Didn't Terrence McKenna call it a hero's dose or something like that? Or hero's journey?
But actually, a hero's journey, I believe, is actually 3.5, an eighth. And
really?
Yeah, look it up. Because I saw that once and I was surprised because I was like, oh, we used to do 3.5. And it's very interesting because I hadn't tried them till I was in my 30s. And then, I was always taught to stay away from all that stuff. And, psychedelics, I'm going to say we've always done this in a legal state there. Okay. And psychedelics are, most of them, aside from the legalized states or decriminalized, are a Schedule 1 drug. I mean, why do you think that is? Because they open the mind and they allow you to see things for what they really are.
Right.
And so going back, I was like, oh, therapeutic dose, I want to do that. And we ground them up. I made a smoothie with them because choking down 7 grams of mushrooms was like
terrible.
Yuck. And
I have to have a chaser.
Yeah, like
preferably orange juice.
Yeah. So then we did that. And because they were already ground up in a smoothie and we were on empty stomachs, because you do want your body to be as clean as possible, we, had our setting and, no kids. And then here we go. And then like normally it takes about 40 to 45 minutes to kick in. And it's a slow, easy, like ease into it kind of kick in. And this was like literally in 20 minutes, we were both sitting on the couch balled up. And it felt like a wave. And it was like a giant wave of all the things that were about to come forward and just crash down. And like, you could just feel it coming on like in 20 minutes. And it was like, all of a sudden, like I start hearing things in my head and it's like, oh my gosh, this is a therapeutic dose, but you don't have a therapist. All you have is another schmo on 7 grams of mushrooms. And I ended up getting sick and like probably losing about half of it. And then after that, I was fine. My body did me a solid and kind of was connected to everything else and said like, this isn't time. This isn't it for you. And after that, I laid on the porch, watched the birds, connected with nature, heard great messages, and then it was good. And that is an example of carelessness and what not to do. And if you like have a guide, start small, not telling you to do it, just saying, if you on your own accord, these are our experiences and what we have had from it. So I'm going to dive. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to tell you what Terrence McKenna said about it.
Oh yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
So we were both wrong. I thought it was 7 grams. I think that's the clinical dose. Therapeutic dose. Okay. All right. So that's where we got the 7 grams from. So for those of you who don't know Terrence McKenna, he was kind of like the godfather. They consider him, he was a psychedelic thinker. He was huge proponent of exactly what we're talking about right now. All these different plant medicines, especially mushrooms. So he was the one who popularized the idea of a heroic dose, often called a hero's journey. It's 5 grams. So we took more than what Terrence McKenna called a heroic dose or a hero's journey.
I promise you, I've seen before on like a mushroom chocolate wrapper that a hero's dose was 3.5. So,
Well,
I mean, and who knows?
I'm sure it's different amongst different people.
But if Terrence McKenna said that's a hero's dose, I'm going to go with what
5
he said.
grams. So, man. But he also suggested a certain way to do it as well, which is not what we did. But
well, and I'm one of those like learn the hard way kind of people. I just like I dive in and then I'm like, oh,
maybe not that much.
Maybe not like that.
Maybe that was going a little too hard in the paint.
And the other thing I have noticed, the more I have stripped down, like the more I have integrated my shadow self, my shadow side, the things of my past, or the more I've like released trauma and released things, and the more I've evolved as a spiritual being and practice meditation, which keeps your frequency raised. Not all the time. I'm not saying I roll around like at 100 all the time, but the higher you vibe as a rule, I truly think that you become more sensitive to those things. And whereas we used to do 3.5 grams, no issue,
no problem.
Now, like 1 gram is plenty.
It's crazy how things change.
It's like, I don't like, my uncle always be eating
Oh,
whole chocolate bars himself or
he
two.
eats that
I
stuff
don't
like
get
literally
it.
like it's candy.
But
he loves it. And he just sits by himself.
and listens to
He
his
has a
giant
huge
speakers of
huge
music
sound
with no
system at his
lyrics.
house, and
He climbs into the music.
he really does.
Yeah.
And he texts us links to all that music all the time. It's pretty cool. He's a cool guy.
Yeah. So, okay, psilocybin, like what we've been talking about, we personally, that's my like most common experience as far as psychedelic. And, you know, I'm going to say something else. I have never hallucinated on mushrooms. Never. I have not seen things. Now, I might see things more vividly, like brighter.
Yeah, shapes and colors and lights.
I don't
bit.
see like little creatures dancing around me, or not that I don't believe that little beings aren't there, but I haven't. Now, I've like spoken with trees because
she has.
I mean, but I think we can anyway. It's just, again, it removes that
she's a literal tree
logical filter, you know? And so it's like what we try to explain away during the day, this
with the filter on.
Like this takes the filter off and you're like, oh, you're a beautiful tree.
And
like,
they talk.
Yeah.
Just like in Lord of the Rings, the Ents.
Yes. So magic mushrooms, like,
we're going to compare these real quick.
Yeah, compare the
just give
major
you
players.
Slight background between with each.
Historically, Central South America, but
they're everywhere.
They're everywhere. Like,
except certain parts of the world, like I brought up earlier, Amanita muscaria, the red-headed mushroom, that is more common over like Middle East, in Europe and Middle East, in that area.
So those typically last about 4 to 6 hours, and it kind of just trails off, and then you go to sleep and you wake up tomorrow and you feel like brighter, I think.
I agree. There's no hangover or anything from it. However, you can have something that seems like a little bit of one simply because you might not have gotten a whole lot of sleep, because that's one thing to keep in mind. Your brain is on overdrive with this. So even when maybe you're not feeling it physically quite, like when it's starting to come down a little bit, when it's wearing off, your brain is still at least maybe it's not for everybody. For me, it's kind of hard to go to sleep sometimes.
Well, and it's not overdrive like,
no, it's not cocaine.
Not chaos.
It's just your brain is just very active. It's much more active and you'll hear more why it's more active here in just a little bit, but it's much more active than it normally is. So sometimes, and maybe it's just, maybe your body is ready to go to sleep, but your brain isn't.
So shroomies are known for introspection, emotional breakthroughs. They're often called teacher. I believe there's a specific strain called the golden teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And people, you're not just like on a trip. You feel like you're being shown something. And I definitely, when I've partook in these sacraments, I feel like I have been shown things. And just a quick, another little, I might have a lot of stories this episode, but we'll
That's
see.
fine.
So,
people love stories.
Yeah. So we were on mushrooms, and that's the other thing. It used to be a little more frequently, and now it's like maybe once a year. And it's crazy because it's like, I think at that point, maybe because of where we were at in life, we needed to be shown more, and we needed to be shown what to strip away and what to remove and how to connect deeper. And now, and not that we're not still learning, but a lot of that other stuff.
You just might not need that. That's just, it's help.
Yeah.
Help from above.
Yeah.
It's help from God. Like I said, God placed all of these here.
So
that's even in the Bible, y'all.
One quick story about the shroomies was, I think this might have been the same night, the same experience. And I had church hurt, and because I'd been shunned by a whole grouping of people for leaving the church. And I was kind of like meh about all churches. And like I felt guided. Spirit was like, go to your mother-in-law's church tomorrow. It was a Saturday night. And I was like, Zach, text your mom and tell her we're coming to church tomorrow so that like I can't back out. Like I'll feel more of a pull to go. And when I went, I did have the experience that not all churches are the same. They were worshiping and connecting, communing with something sacred. And I felt the presence of God there. Then I believe, I can't say for sure, but who really cares? In the same evening, I had a vision of Jesus teaching the chakras to what I felt like were the disciples, but a large group of people. And the chakras, if you don't know, are energy centers in our body that like help they resonate with different parts of our body. But chakra literally means wheel, and it's a wheel of energy that is in our body. We have 7 main ones. Okay, so I saw Jesus teaching the chakras, and I was in yoga teacher training at the time. I just had a feeling that Jesus was a yogi. And so then I see this, and the next day I have a burning desire to go to Half Price Books. I think I've told this story before in a different form, but that's okay. I had a burning desire to go to Half Price Books. It's like the last stop of the day. We go there and I walk in, and it's like I knew exactly where to go. I walk straight back to the section that I felt, and I reach up and I see the lost teachings of Jesus. And I take it out, and I'm kind of freaking out anyway, because I'm like, lost teachings of Jesus. And then I open the index, and boom, there it is, integration of the chakras. And I mean, that was literally the next day. So I do believe that they are teachers, that they do connect you. I've always said, before we even dug into it and what it does to the brain, I always said that I feel like it connects synapses that aren't normally connected in the brain. And essentially, it does. So, okay, that's magic mushrooms or psilocybin.
And one more thing, the only reason we're saying so much is because this is the one we have the most experience with out of everything we're going to talk about today. So we've just got stories, and we'll tell more later. But I just want to also say, again, not telling you what to do. This is just a suggestion. But really, any of these are not what I would consider party drugs.
No, they took us to church.
Right.
Mushrooms I said, go to church.
And I even feel uncomfortable saying drugs unless it's like ketamine or something like that that's made in a lab. To me, something that's, and maybe I'm just wrong what the actual definition of drug is, but to me, it feels weird calling a plant a drug.
That's why we call it plant medicine.
Right. So, but my point is, my suggestion is don't just take this stuff and do these things flippantly.
Intention.
Yeah, like
everything.
Do it with intention, and that could be a very simple intention. It doesn't necessarily have to be anything crazy. It could just be like, I need to just be with myself for a little bit, and just, like Terrence McKenna always suggested that you do it blindfolded in a dark room by yourself, unless you want to do it with somebody else. Oof. Blindfold it, like basically, or put yourself into one of those tanks, the sensory deprivation tanks, just like in the
Fringe.
show Fringe, which watch that show if you've never watched it. It's we've watched it a few times.
That stuff's real.
And so just the whole point is to block out the external world, the external stimulation and the noise, so that it becomes a completely internal experience. That was Terrence when he talked about the heroic dose and everything. That was his suggestion. Anyways, I'm just suggesting because I hear this from a lot of people that I've had conversations with, and there's no judgment here. I just personally don't think that's the way to treat these things, you want to have a good time and you're partying and stuff, there are other things that you can partake and do that with. I don't think anything on this list should be something.
We don't we're not condoning that necessarily.
No,
either.
I'm just saying for people are going to do what they're going to do. I'm
Yes.
saying these things, including psilocybin or mushrooms, I hear a lot of people speak of it as like, oh yeah, I did some shrooms and went to this party and blah, blah. And that's fine. But
I would definitely say do not mix it with alcohol.
no,
Like they are,
and I have a bad
completely
experience
different
from mixing it with
vibrations.
alcohol from years ago. I'm not really going to go into it just because we need to move on anyway. But that's just what I'm saying. I'm just suggesting don't take any of these things flippantly and just like, oh, I think I'm just going to like really think about it, meditate on it, pray on it, whatever you need to do. And don't do it in, I don't suggest doing it in like a party setting. First off, myself, that does not sound good to me to take a bunch of something like this and then go to where a bunch, because that's so many other energies around you.
And you
a lot
will
of times
be more
there's alcohol
susceptible.
involved, which is okay, but that's a totally different vibration and frequency.
And that's the thing. It does make you more susceptible to other people's energy.
You feel it a lot.
You
more.
feel it. You're more sensitive to it.
Yeah, and then that can then lead to a bad trip because your body is just kind of it's clashing with other energies and it can become very uncomfortable. All of those kinds of things, and they always say with any psychedelic, it's all about set and setting. So who you're with, where you're at, your environment. My suggestion is that you do it somewhere either peaceful, at the very least peaceful. And, some people like to do this and like maybe be in the woods or the forest or something. But my suggestion is somewhere like your home or somewhere where you're comfortable and people you do it with, be picky about that too, because
very picky.
That can get, uncomfortable for people if you're on just vibing on different levels. So that's all I was going to say about that. So let's talk about the next one.
So the next plantee is ayahuasca, and this is becoming more and more common. People used to not know what ayahuasca was, and now more and more people are like, oh, I've heard about that, or oh,
Yep.
I've been interested in that. And this one, I mean, it's a little more intense. The duration is about 6 to 8 hours. It originates in the Amazon rainforest, and it's known for intense visions, purging, ego death. And I've heard it said that it's like 7 years of therapy in a weekend. And, we were actually looking into doing an ayahuasca adventure and
retreat.
Yeah, retreat. And we kind of weren't, we meditated and prayed on it and we're kind of feeling pulled away from that and ended up doing ayahuasca, which was what we'll talk about that later as a lesser known plant. And we ended up doing that, and it's native to Hawaii. And when we were celebrating our 10-year anniversary and my 20 years of doing hair, we partook in that, and we will share a bit about that experience later. So, ayahuasca, anything you want to say on that?
I think a big part of it, we actually don't even bring this. I don't even think we bring this up today, but DMT. Did we bring that up? Okay, I couldn't remember if we talked about that. Okay, well, similar, but DMT is much more short-lived. The experience. What I was going to say though is
doesn't ayahuasca bring on DMT?
It does, but it's different. That's why you see a different duration. Ayahuasca, it's 6 to 8 hours. DMT is like 10 or 15 minutes.
Okay.
So it's similar, but not exactly the same. It's something a little bit different. So all I was saying is that yes, it has, as with all of these, have started to become more popular in just our society and even pop culture. For any of you who listen to Joe Rogan, he brings up DMT and ayahuasca all the time. So that alone, something like that, has brought it more toward to the forefront of conversation with a lot of people. Not to mention the clinical studies that are being done with all this stuff. But you got to be careful with ayahuasca as well. Don't just, because if you go search for ayahuasca ceremonies, be very, very careful. Like, do some research on wherever it is you're looking at. Because,
Preferably somebody that you know. And we actually know someone who just recently took a group of people on a retreat. So if you have interest in that, we can get you
yeah, we can
his
get you
name,
legit
but-
information, but you do not want to do. You will see that there are certain ceremonies that are offered within the United States.
Don't.
Our suggestion is don't do one that's in the United States because, like she said, this originates in the Amazon forest or Amazon rainforest. So it's South America. This is something that has been used for a very, very long time amongst the natives and the locals. You need to find a legitimate retreat, which, if it's legitimate, they're going to have a legitimate shaman on hand. Or you find an actual shaman who does it. It might not be like some big old retreat, but if it's legit, it's going to be a shaman. That's where the shaman comes into play, which is really just another word for a holy man, a wise man, a holy man, whatever you want to call that. But you cannot, there are some, you can look for yourself, but there have been some bad stories of people going to the wrong retreat because this is such a potent plant that it really opens up your mind. It really opens up your suggestibility. That's the word I was looking for. You're much more suggestible in this state. You got to be careful with whoever it is that's watching over you and directing your experience. So that's all I was going to say.
But you definitely want a guide. This is not something you just do in your living room. And yeah, it's people that are trained with the plant. Peyote or mescaline.
Yep.
And that's Native American ceremonies is where that originates. Duration is 10 to 12 hours. And it's known for spiritual clarity, connection to nature, which I would say, honestly, all of them kind of give you spiritual clarity and connection to nature. But ayahuasca might be a little more, even like more intense on the self. Because like we said, like there's ego death, which is like death to everything that you've learned of who you are, like everything you've been conditioned, and it strips you down to your being. And I think all of them have the potential to do that as well. Now we've got LSD, aka acid, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that originated in a Swiss lab in 1938. Lasts between 8 and 12 hours. It's known for strong visuals, altered reality perception. Wasn't Steve Jobs a big LSD fan?
Yes, he came up with the idea for Apple while on LSD.
I mean,
and
then look.
And now look at Apple, and a lot of guys out in Silicon Valley microdose.
I was going to say it's a big
engineers out there.
Mushrooms are another
mushrooms and acid
microdose.
They a lot of them microdose. The majority of them microdose, actually.
Some people microdose for like depression, anxiety, and there's ways to do that. You'd have to look into it, but
I was what?
Go ahead.
Oh.
Go ahead.
I tried microdosing before I knew what microdosing was. Long time ago when you were living in Deer Chase. So what was that? 10
Over
years ago?
10 years ago.
Over 10 years ago. I remember, I don't know what made me think to do this, but I remember standing in front of our Keurig one day when I was getting ready to leave for work. And I decided I was going to take just a little bit of mushrooms. And it was like maybe half a gram. It was probably less than half a gram. It was just a very small amount, a microdose. I don't remember what the technical...
I think it's more like 0.25.
Dosage, okay. So it's like 0.25. You could maybe do 0.5 as a microdose, but I would probably less than that would be a proper microdose. And I just did that. And I remember it used to take me about 45 minutes to get to work because I was working, out on the west side. And I remember starting to feel a little something in my tummy. nothing bad, but just kind of that feeling when it starts hitting you. And but it was nothing crazy. It wasn't anything whatever. And I had a phenomenal day at work. I specifically remember that. I remember being commented or complimented multiple times by two different bosses of mine. My direct boss and then my boss's boss just told me I was just on point that day. I remember it being very sharp mentally and just being on it, man. That's the best way I can describe it. And so on top of that, I also just felt really good that day.
An overall sense of well-being.
An overall sense of well-being and just kind of nice, not like high really, because when you microdose, you are getting all of these positive effects that we'll go into in a little bit, what it's doing in your brain and everything. You get all of that stuff without any of the psychedelic really or hallucinogenic, properties. So you're getting a lot of more of like you're taking as if you were taking a supplement of some sort. And truly it does make you sharp. And that's goes back to why all those guys in Silicon Valley use or microdose with that, or same thing with acid. Acid, I feel like, is a little bit harder to dose for a microdose. That either way, it makes you sharp. It makes you sharp, and we will also go into the clinical studies going on concerning like depression, PTSD, and stuff like that. I also remember after that day realizing now I see this stuff could be used, and I didn't even know this was being studied for things like depression. I was like, man, I feel like this could replace, like, for certain people, antidepressants or anti-anxiety meds.
But then they wouldn't make as much money.
Of course. So that comes back to why that's why it's illegal.
Because you can grow your own.
Yeah, you don't need somebody else.
You don't need somebody to put it in a pill form and then cap it in a bottle and then prescribe it.
Right.
But I too had an experience with microdosing, and I was brilliant that day. Like, I just remember being like, oh my God, my ideas are brilliant. My speech is so clear, and I just have so much clarity on all of my ideas. And I just wonder, like, why, like, connecting that without anything, but I think a lot of that comes down to meditation and breath work. But okay, so that's LSD.
That also connects to the Salem witch trials.
Oh, yeah.
Because do you know how it was developed? This is one of those things this is one of the ones that's obviously developed in a lab. This is totally synthetic. It was Dr. Albert Hoffman in 1938 synthesized it for a pharmaceutical company. He was studying compounds derived from ergot, which is a fungus that grows on rye.
See, it stemmed from nature.
It stemmed from nature. And then I said that connects to the Salem witch trials, because a lot of people think that some, if not all of these women weren't necessarily witches.
Most of them were not.
No, they were
either
Protestant
healers
type
with
people.
herbs.
Yeah, they were either naturalists that just healed people with herbs and stuff, but they all ate this bread around there, and ergot is a fungus that's famous for growing on rye bread. Well, on rye, but in this instance, rye bread. And then when you eat that and you don't know that you just took something like that, I mean, and if you have a lot of it, I mean, you're going to go crazy a little bit. People are going to think you are out of your mind.
Might start seeing some of them angels and things around.
Just a fun little fact about it. And, it initially was used, to treat alcoholism. They were also, I'll give you a little small tidbit of what I believe it was developed for, but it was developed and used for the military to study mind control techniques. And this is actually documented. Our own military and probably other militaries in the world utilized this in the very beginning on people, and some of them unknowingly. Like they would give it to them and wouldn't tell them they gave it to them, and they just wanted to see what it would do to them.
Ugh.
And I've seen some footage. It's old black and white footage of some of these subjects, and it is uncomfortable to watch.
It makes my body uncomfortable just hearing, like not knowing.
And then all of a
that you're on
sudden
a
you
substance.
that happens, and then
Yeah.
you don't know what's going on. But
Mhm.
yeah, the military used it and studied to see if they could use it for mind control techniques, because these types of things make you more suggestible. It opens up your mind. It peels back a veil, but it also makes you more suggestible, which is why I said earlier, be careful with any of these, but especially things like this or like doing an ayahuasca ceremony. You got to make sure you're with the right people, etc. So what's next?
MDMA. It's not classic psychedelic, but it's included. Also lab synthesized. And the duration is 4 to 6 hours. It's known for emotional openness and trauma processing,
AKA ecstasy or Molly.
which I have not done that. And I just tend to shy away from anything that's synthetic. I prefer to stick with, what's come from the earth.
I tried it a few times a long time ago.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. I'm sure if you took it in a large dose, you probably would have somewhat of a psychedelic experience. I wouldn't categorize it. I mean, I guess that's why it's not considered a classic psychedelic. I think technically it is because of what it's doing in your brain, but that's a
So
party drug.
but it can allow for trauma processing in the right setting.
In a clinical setting,
clinical
and it
setting.
has been and is used for those things because it is, and I can see why. The way it makes you feel good.
Mm-hmm.
That's why people are all real lovey-dovey when they're on it. That's why it's called ecstasy.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, let's go into what's happening in your brain. We talked about, what it's doing in veils and filters. So there's actual scientific evidence of
what's going on,
journaling and documentation of what's going on in the brain when on these substances.
Yep. So first one is serotonin activation. So psychedelics activate your serotonin receptors, specifically 5-HT2A, which alters your perception and your mood. So there's your perception altering, there's your mood altering right there. That is the same system that's tied to happiness and mood regulation. So is it spiritual, or are you just chemically altering your happiness and perception system? I would say it's both.
Yeah.
I would say it's both.
Always like to include the spiritual because we're spiritual beings having a human experience, and the brain's part of the human experience.
And really all we're doing here, because we do believe there's a spiritual aspect to this, to really any of these, well, most of them, but just because something is a spiritual thing or a spiritual event does not mean that there isn't
biological things happening.
Yeah, the biological things that have to happen in order for that experience to happen. So it doesn't negate one or the other. I don't think saying or posing the question, is this spiritual or am I just chemically altering my happiness and perception system? No, it is spiritual, but the technical or biological process that's happening is your happiness and perception system is being altered to a spiritual state. So it's when we ask these questions, it's not negating, oh, this isn't spiritual. We're trying to explain it away in a scientific way. No, science, if you look, science and spirituality have gotten closer and closer and closer and closer over the years because science is trying to explain things that are spiritual or have to do with God or existential things like that. Science is simply just finding a way to put that into words. and okay, well, this is what's happening here, and this is what's happening here.
I mean, even our body systems mimic things that are in the spiritual realm, and they're like a roadmap. And I mean, it says as above, so below. So we are, yeah, I definitely think it's both.
Yeah, I do too. So it doesn't negate when we ask those kinds of questions. We're not negating either one or the other. We're actually saying it's both. It's both. Okay, so the next thing that happens is your default mode network shuts down. That is just the technical term for your ego. The default mode network is your identity, your ego, your inner voice. Psychedelics reduce the activity happening there. So that disrupts rigid thinking patterns and self-focus. So it breaks that apart for at least for a period of time. But if you really utilize it correctly, it could break it apart in a good way permanently, like maybe certain thinking patterns or habits that you have.
Those loops.
The loops that
you know, and negative belief patterns or limiting belief patterns, it can break those.
Right. And that can feel like when that happens, your default mode network or your ego shuts down. That can feel like ego death, which is a common thing reported with probably all of these, but definitely with mushrooms, with ayahuasca. You take enough, it feels like ego death. It can feel like oneness. You're going to feel, especially on a lot of, they say that like peyote, mescaline is a little bit more your heart center that gets affected. And that especially makes you feel like one with nature. But really, I think really all of these do. It'll make you feel kind of like I am everything, you know, and everything is me.
Your connectedness to the all, because everything is connected and we are all one, because everything is all that is.
Right.
And I'd just real quick, I'd like to go just explain ego death a little more, because for someone who hasn't even heard that term, that might sound a little scary. But it's a complete loss of subjective self-identity, often described as the temporary dissolution of the ego, individual personality, or sense of self. It is a profound transformative experience commonly associated with psychedelic experiences, deep meditation, leading to a feeling of oneness with the universe. So that individual self that we walk around, this avatar, this character that we're playing, we step away from that and we experience the all. And it's a beautiful experience when you're not just that title that you give yourself, or that, because we are not our personality. We are not this body.
Right.
And it allows you to step outside of that line of thinking. So that's what ego death. And when you realize, then that opens doors for so many other things. When you're not concerned about the ego, man, I mean, you just begin to open more and more doors for your life. Continue.
So going along with what you just said, so your identity is basically just a network in your brain. So when that network quiets, you don't feel like you anymore. That's going along with what you just said and what we're saying with this and that. That's what it feels like when your default mode network shuts down or becomes highly reduced. The activity is reduced. So,
and you still feel like you, just
it's you.
Bigger than you.
It's not the idea of you.
Yeah.
It's you. The next thing that happens, the brain becomes hyper-connected. So this is where it gets really interesting. This is where when I brought up the Silicon Valley guys that microdose, this is kind of why they do this. New connections form between different brain regions. So
like I said earlier, it feels like synapses are being connected that aren't normally connected.
Neural bridges are literally being built when you do these kinds of things. So that alone can create visions, symbolic thinking, or what we would maybe call like a download from the universe. That's where you might get these ideas, or if you're already focused on something, you're gonna be able to spot patterns quicker than other people. You're gonna be able to, like, all these things that just you're just sharp. You're sharper. Your mind is sharper, and so that's your brain becoming hyper connected. To go along with that, your neuroplasticity increases as well. So your brain becomes more flexible and literally rewires itself. That's what we're talking about here. So
in our last episode, we talked about how hypnosis can like kind of bypass and help rewire neural pathways. And certain plant medicines can help rewire and shift some of those, create new neural pathways.
Right. And that's the real magic of what we're talking about. That your brain is just more open to change is really what it comes down to. It opens up your brain to that. So real quick, to add to the hyperconnection and the neuroplasticity increasing, some of you may have heard of this, but stoned ape theory. Terence McKenna was the one who kind of was at the forefront of this theory. So stoned ape theory is very interesting. It is basically, it was suggested that earlier, I wouldn't necessarily say apes, but apes, earlier versions of humans, that were not quite civilized, didn't have language, all of those things. Apes, earlier versions of humans, ancient human ancestors got smarter partially because they ate psychedelic mushrooms. So not once, not accidentally, but like repeatedly over generations. I'm not saying that like two guys found some and next thing you know, they're speaking a language. This happened over generations, if this is true. So basically, think of it like this. Early humans are roaming around, let's just say the African savanna, and they're following herds of animals, especially cows, because cows have been used for millennia for milk and meat and all that stuff. Well, one place that mushrooms grow is in animal dung. So that's not typically where everybody grows them that you get them, but some people do. That's where you can find psilocybin and various other forms of mushrooms growing out of like cow poop. I know that sounds gross, but it's true. So mushrooms grow naturally in animal dung. And eventually somebody went, hey, this weird thing didn't kill me yesterday. Let's try it again. And then that kept happening. And, different doses had different evolutionary benefits. So maybe they took a low dose, well, better survival. This is microdosing. So they took a low dose, they had better survival properties. So slight visual enhancement, better pattern recognition, improved hunting ability. If they took a medium-sized dose, that gives you a little bit more of the social bonding between them. So it gives you a mood boost, increased empathy, stronger group connection. And then if they took maybe some high doses, well, there's your mind expansion. So ego dissolution, symbolic thinking, early language development. So what if all of a sudden some dude was like, what if we could describe what we're seeing and feeling right now? Some way to describe it, whether it be through writing or through language or through speaking a language, whatever it is. So basically the claim is that over thousands of years, utilizing specifically psilocybin is what we're talking about here, because it occurs naturally in a lot of places, that led to bigger brains because of neuroplasticity and increasing your brain becoming hyper-connected, which led to more complex language, which then led to culture, art, spirituality, all of those types of things. So mushrooms helped turn apes or early humans into modern humans. Now, this is not proven. This was a theory. It's called stoned ape theory. So that's not actually proven, but it raises questions like what we're talking about. Could altered states influence creativity?
Oh, absolutely.
Did plants play a bigger role in human evolution than we think? And not just mushrooms. I mean, this goes across the board with all the different, of course, plants played a huge role in our evolution. And, this also is why are psychedelics so tied to spirituality across different cultures? So again, it's not scientifically proven, but it is very interesting to think about. It is a very plausible thing, I think, and that just goes along with what I'm talking about with what's going on in the brain and it basically rewiring things.
Speaking of creativity, in the movie Noah, they allude to the fact that Noah ingests the psychedelic in order to
hear from God before the flood. And then that's where he gets the message. Basically, he sees a vision of, he's out in a bunch of corpses or something. He's in a boat amongst a sea of corpses. And like he gets this vision from Methuselah, his grandfather, who was played by Anthony Hopkins, and gives him this brew or this tea of some sort. They don't say what it is, but it's some sort of psychedelic brew or tea. And then they're in a cave, and next thing you know, Noah's seeing these visions and stuff. But I mean, we've briefly touched on this before, and maybe we'll do a full episode on it or something one day. But I mean, I'm convinced that there's psychedelic use in the Bible.
Yeah, I mean,
Moses seeing the burning bush. And hearing God's voice and seeing this burning bush, and that's just one example.
Altered states of consciousness are what allows us to connect more deeply to that spiritual side. I believe you can connect without it, absolutely. But as we said, it connects things.
It's a tool.
and they just remove filters that normally keep your reality stable.
Also, your emotional centers shift. So you get a reduced fear response in the amygdala, which increases positive mood. That has been seen in studies with psilocybin specifically. So that gets into clinical usage of treatment for depression, PTSD, addiction, things like that.
Attention, Earth humans. This is not a drill. Your haircut has entered a danger zone. At High Level Design Salon and Barbershop, they specialize in emergency-style corrections, precision fades, cosmic color, beard work calibrated to NASA-level standards. Because honestly, your current look is drifting off course. Zach and Jessica turn the mundane into magic with results that are truly out of this world. Book your glow up before re-entry of highlevel444.com. That's highlevel444.com for services, pricing, and appointments. High Level Design Salon and Barbershop. Houston, we fixed it.
So in the mental health arena, there's a lot of studies that show that psychedelics show strong reductions in depression, anxiety, and PTSD. Psilocybin shows one of the strongest effects in clinical data. And I think that's probably because it's one that's been studied the most.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of websites, specifically National Institute of Health, and that's a .gov website, by the way.
What's up, Fauci?
That show that MDMA-based psychotherapy has done a lot for people with PTSD.
Yep.
67% of participants no longer qualified for PTSD after treatment. And like we said before, we're not just talking about, I feel better. We're talking about physically changing the way the brain is wired.
And that's why you're feeling better.
And that's why you feel, because there's no longer those loops, those neural pathways that are creating the same automatic stress response. It is rewired to restore healthy function. And it's not spiritual, but it can be. And, we're talking clinical at this point. So they're utilizing, and again, I think the spiritual aspect kind of always plays, but in these instances, we're talking about clinical. They are using this as medicine in that capacity and psychotherapy. So to break it down, like we said, PTSD, your brain is stuck in a survival loop, and the psychedelics reduce fear response and allow new associations.
Which is going to break up that your brain being stuck in a survival loop.
It relearns safety.
Yeah,
And those
literally
same triggers
relearns
won't
safety.
trigger you anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so some of the potential benefits of and risks, because with everything, even with pharmaceuticals, those commercials, you have like a list a mile long of, this could cause suicide thoughts and even possibly death.
Yeah, there's benefits and risks to literally everything. So we're going to be fair here. We're not just going to, talk them up and say, yeah, this is great, and this is fun. I mean, there's risks and benefits to drinking too much water or not enough. You know what I mean? If you drink too much water, you're going to die.
But that has to be a lot of water. So stay
I don't
stay
mean
hydrated.
Drinking too much. I mean drinking too much at once. That's what water toxicity or whatever that's called.
But again, that's a lot. So make sure you're getting it it's 64 ounces a day at least.
Yes.
They say half your body weight. I don't know, in ounces.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But
in ounces. I was going to say, what?
In
half
ounces.
Your body weight in ounces.
In ounces.
Okay.
So like if you weigh 150, 75 ounces of water.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I don't think I drink enough.
You don't drink enough.
I drink more than the average person does, I think. Or maybe I just drink less of some of the other things than the average person. I just don't drink like soda and all that kind of stuff. I mean, my normal drinking is just water, coffee, and tea sometimes.
Yeah. Potential benefits of our planty medicines: trauma healing, reduce depression, anxiety, breaking addictive loops, and increased openness. And I mean, I think I have experienced pretty much all those. The potential benefits that I've experienced, all those benefits within that realm. And some of the risks, you can have bad trips. Like we mentioned earlier, your setting is of utmost import. And so bad trips, fear, paranoia. I had an experience one time, and it was pretty soon after I had experienced shroomies for the first time, that I did them prior to a concert. And for whatever reason, I was the only one in the group. Well, not for whatever reason. Obviously, most people were smart enough. And no one else did mushrooms. And yes, I remember specifically because at first I was having such a good time, and I was marching to the front. We had this blanket overhead, and all these people. I was collecting strangers along the way. And all of a sudden I turn around and look, and no one from our group is there. And it's all strangers staring at me. And I was all of a sudden I got scared. All of a sudden I felt everybody's energy. No one was around me that I knew. And I got so angry at you because I was like, you left me, and you left to go get food, and you left me. And you're like, I've been in this one spot the whole time. I didn't leave. And I got mad, and I think I wanted to leave. And
it was the Weezer show.
Yeah. And then in the end, I realized that is not the setting at all. And you know what? Like I said, sometimes you have to learn the hard way. And I learned the hard way that time. And Spirit was like, yeah, it's not really for that. And so then I learned, and never again did it in a public setting. So you do want to be careful, and you do want to set the intention, and you do want to, in my personal experience, maybe, connect with something bigger than yourself prior to that. And uh,
Bless your experience.
bless your experience. You can have emotional overwhelm.
And just be wary of your setting, your environment, who you're with. That's a big deal, man. You make sure you're with somebody that you're comfortable with, your family, a close friend, your partner, your spouse. If you're going to be with somebody else, there's also a lot of positive to doing things like that by yourself too. You don't always have to do it with somebody. It is enjoyable to do it with somebody that you love or that you're close to, but there are plenty of positive benefits to doing it by yourself, especially if you go in like Terrence McKenna's way of just like blocking out everything and literally just like laying there in the dark, no external stimulation, and it becomes a totally internal experience. And there's something to be said about that too. But just be careful who you're with, what you're doing. I also, like we said earlier, I would not suggest drinking while you're doing this. And again, that's not a slight to drinking or anything. It's fine if you want to do that, but I don't suggest getting cross-faded in that way.
Yeah.
Like that's going to mess up it's just going to mess it up. It's not going to be what it should be.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had experience with that a long time ago drinking while I was doing it.
Because alcohol affects your brain as well.
So you've got something that is raising a vibration or changing the vibration. You've got something that's lowering it. And so now you've got this natural tension that's happening inside of you that's pulling you in both directions, which is going to come out as bad feelings, bad trip, whatever.
The other thing you do have to be careful of is mixing with medications.
Or, yes, mixing other medications.
You want to be careful with that. So, some of the lesser known psychedelics. You mentioned iboga earlier. And what was that called?
So, iboga is the name of the plant. I don't remember the full name of it, but iboga is the name of the plant, and ibogaine is what you would take if you were to take this. I first heard about it from Joe Rogan. He has opened a lot of people's minds. Shout out to Joe for talking so freely about stuff like this. But he's done that himself. He said it's extremely intense. Which is one of the characteristics of iboga. Now that has been used in Africa. There's two countries or two tribes or two countries. I think two countries that it specifically has been used in. I can't remember right off the bat, but they've used it for thousands of years for the same reason, for more, ritual purposes and such. But, iboga is the first one that's kind of a lesser known psychedelic that has also been used for addiction treatment in small doses. If I'm not mistaken, when they're using it in a clinical setting, they don't need a whole lot, so they use it in smaller doses, but it is found to be extremely useful in the addiction arena. What's next?
San Pedro.
Yeah.
Never tried that.
Nope.
And let's see, South America is where it comes from. Similar to mescaline.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a more heart-centered experience. Gets you out of your head and into your heart, which is where the majority of the goods come from.
Mm-hmm.
The heart. Like we've said in previous episodes, the heart puts out like way more EMFs and signals and messages to the brain than the brain does. So getting into that heart, that's where you're going to get a lot of those downloads.
Mm-hmm.
Then we move on to, now we're going to bring up DMT.
DMT.
And what's that stand for?
Dimethyltryptamine.
So that is naturally occurring in plants and in your body.
And it is a Schedule 1 drug.
Which
is crazy.
It's crazy.
It's already crazy because it's from a plant, but it's even crazier.
Because it's in our body.
Because your own body produces it.
So, again, all these things, I mean, cannabis was like descheduled, right? As a Schedule 1.
Recently, I'm pretty sure they descheduled it, I believe, because it's not Schedule 1 anymore. I don't believe.
And it's like you look at all these Schedule 1 and I don't know, some of it.
Like they're placing most of what we've talked about are Schedule 1 drugs, which means that they are saying when something is Schedule 1, they're saying there's no medical usage for it. There's no real medical or actual usage for it. So these plants that we've talked about, these are on the same level as methamphetamine, cocaine, like things like that, like what you would consider like hard drugs,
which are actually detrimental.
Yes, which can just
your mind and
exactly
body,
so
and
these,
addictive.
These plants are on the same level.
That's another thing. Psychedelics, none of what we have,
addictive.
They are not addictive.
They have zero addictive properties.
So you can take it once, and the only reason that you might feel pulled to do it again is because you feel that inner pull. There's no chemical dependence. Thank you.
Right.
And so DMT, very short-lived, 5 to 15 minutes, but extremely intense.
Mm-hmm.
They say like you feel like a blast off, basically.
A lot of people report the blast off. The crazy thing is that I wouldn't even call it crazy. It's just a very interesting thing. When you have enough of it, you blast off, is what people say. And again, you'll hear people like Joe Rogan talk about, especially DMT a lot, that you blast off and people report seeing the same things when they because DMT, you go somewhere, not physically. You are physically still here, but like
an out of body experience.
Almost. You go somewhere. And a lot of people are convinced that it is almost like interdimensional, that you are going to like I don't know if it's a parallel dimension or just it's another higher dimension. I don't know. But a lot of people think theorize that that's what you're doing. But people report across the board the same kind of
it allows
things.
Your consciousness to be transported instead of in this body.
Right. And a lot of people talk about like the DMT elves is what a lot of people bring up, is these like little beings that they see in their visions. And a lot of times they'll talk to you. They're very jovial, very lighthearted. A lot of times they'll have specific messages for you. Or some people call them the machine elves, but a lot of people report seeing the same things, which is just interesting that you're not getting different reports. You're getting like the same basic experience from a lot of people. So just interesting to note about DMT, which also that comes from a root. Typically that root comes from South America, Central America. It is not the easiest thing to get because, again, it is a Schedule 1 drug in our country. I think it's probably Schedule 1 in like most countries in the world, but it is one of the most potent out of all of what we've talked about as far as the experience. It's very short, but I've heard some people say it doesn't, when you're in it, it doesn't feel like it's 15 minutes. It's like time dilation.
Mm-hmm.
So like physically 5 to 15 minutes has gone by. It hits you real fast. It's not something that you're ingesting necessarily. Typically, people will take this and they'll smoke it in some way. And so it's pretty quick activation. There's not like a 45-minute or an hour wait time as if you did with like ayahuasca, because you're drinking something. You got to wait for it to like get through your system. But this happens quickly. And a lot of people have mentioned how when you're in it, it doesn't feel like 15 minutes. I've heard some people say it felt like years. I've heard somebody say it felt like it was like a few days. Like I've just heard longer than 15 minutes, but then you get back and you're like, oh my God, it's 15, 20 minutes has gone by. That's it. That's crazy.
It destroys the illusion of time and space.
The illusion of exactly. What's next?
Hayvaka. And that is something that Zach and I actually recently tried. I'd never heard of it prior. And it's actually a mix of different plants native to Hawaii that have been used for hundreds of years. Mm-hmm. And the exact ingredients are kept private so that you're not just like, people aren't just going and stealing all the plants, so that, because, it would end up probably thinning the crop.
It probably would, because it's only there on those islands. So there's only a certain amount of it, and we don't know exactly which plants it is. And yeah, so it's not because they don't want people to. It is truly because of the survival of these plants. Because if people knew, they would go get, and I'm sure it's probably something that only grows there. I feel like it's not something that you can just be like, oh, I'm going to take some spores or some seeds and take it back home. And it probably has to be there because of like the volcanic, soil and all that kind of stuff. So that's the other thing too, is that it's from a special place.
Yeah.
Hawaii, with the volcanoes and all of that, the rich history there of just the landscape. It comes
and the
from
spiritual history as
the
well.
spiritual history, the Mother Earth energy there.
It's considered modern because it's more just now kind of coming into the public eye, but it is a ceremonial brew. It's less studied.
Yep. It's because it's less available.
And it's not in comparison to ayahuasca because it's not ayahuasca. And it's within the same plant realm, but it is way, way more mild, way less intense. And so when we actually just did this a couple weeks ago as part of our celebration week for our anniversaries, and one of the things we really wanted to do was have a plant medicine experience with a shaman, a guide. And so actually the first night we were supposed to do it, our flights got canceled. Well, one flight we were supposed to have direct from Chicago, and there were storms, so they canceled the flight. We ended up hopping on a different airline and getting out there a day late, and we were supposed to do the ceremony that night, and we were like, man, not feeling in the condition for that kind of thing.
We were traveling for 36
Wanted
hours.
to reschedule it, and in the end, it had to end up getting rescheduled anyway due to the storms, and so we were in a much better place physically, spiritually, and emotionally by the time we ended up experiencing this. And so we did it at a place called Muisha Hail Pule, and Muisha is as I ohm backwards, which I thought was so cool. And Shaman Jack was our guide, and he said after we take the brew, he opened up the ceremony with some Native American chanting, and it was beautiful. It resonated in the body. And then he said, after we take the brew, we don't talk again, and it'll last 4.5 hours. And I'm like, 4.5 hours of not talking. And I was just like, man, what if this stimulates so many things that I just want to talk about? And we had journals, like notebooks nearby, so we could write. And we ended up, like, we had chairs, but we ended up kind of just laying on the ground. And I remember we were outside, and it was very gradual, extremely gradual, to the point where I was like, this is so mild. Like, I was like,
Yeah,
I don't even know. And then
I didn't even know if it was, at one point I was like, is this working?
yeah.
Like,
And
I didn't say anything, but in my mind I was like, man, maybe I'll just wait for a little bit. But I mean,
and it did take probably maybe about, I don't know. My sense of time is definitely off on that, because when he rang the bell at 4.5 hours and he actually said, oh yeah, it's 11:15. I was like, what? Because it had been almost 5 hours.
Well, we had gotten there. He told us to get there at 5, but we didn't really start because we talked and stuff for a little while. And
it was 5:45.
Was it 5:45?
Yes.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Maybe right around 6 when we actually took the brew. But anyway, I remember when I just had this utmost, I almost felt like I was sinking into peace. And my brain, it definitely did connect some things. I was having ideas out the yin yang. I was having ideas. I felt very connected to my guides. And I was having ideas even for their business. I'm like, oh my gosh, we could have them come and we could put it on and we could host it and they could do it and bring it to more people. And it was like, Spirit was like, that's a nice idea, but that's not what we're doing right now. And so I was very easily able to step out, like be like, oh, I'm going to get out of my head and get back into my heart space, which is where that peace, like, it was like, I kept hearing focus on peace, and it almost felt almost like a tangible experience. I don't really know how to put it into words, but like you had said, it was like you were able to just be.
Yeah.
You weren't a mother, a father, a sister, a child of someone. You were just a being, and it was beautiful. And then like we heard the frogs, and like I started hearing them almost as a symphony. And then I would get little messages and like metaphors for different things. And then I would get in my head, not in a negative way, just I would realize I was thinking. And then I would come back and remember, okay, so he had those chatterboxes. And
Yeah, they have wild boars out there,
Yeah.
so they have to do things so they don't tear up your yard and your garden.
so he warned us. He said, okay, we've got chatterboxes and they might go off, and it sounds like guns firing and dogs barking.
It's meant to scare these boars away. And he's surrounded by 4 farms, I think he said. So there's trucks and stuff. Every now and then you'll hear a truck, or you'll hear there's some dogs off in the distance barking. And sometimes that'll make these chatterboxes go off.
Mm-hmm. So I remember the first time they went off, and I was slightly disrupted. I wasn't like, oh, this is terrible or anything like that. It took me away from that immense state of peace and relaxation. And because I focused in on it, it was something that was different. And I was like, what is that? And then I'm like, oh, it's the chatterboxes. Okay. And it felt like it went on for a while. But I got back to my peace, and I was like, kind of just there in it. And then it went off again the second time. And I all of a sudden just had this epiphany, and it was like, that's life. Like, we're going along where everything's smooth sailing. It's fine. We're flowing. Everything feels good. And then all of a sudden, boom, guns firing, dogs barking, or that translates to a bill you weren't expecting, financial troubles, your car breaks down, something happens in a relationship,
Your roof caves in.
Our ceiling collapses, and that disrupts your peace. And then I honed in. I just heard focus on your peace, and I honed in, and all of a sudden it was like all of those things are chatterboxes. They're illusions to disrupt you from your peace. And it was like the chatterbox noise felt shorter the next time, and I was able to hone in on my peace. And it was like, you remember, it disrupts you. And then you remember you were already told it's just the chatterboxes. And then the next time it went off, it barely disrupted me. And finally it just became like a noise in the background that I didn't even notice, and it didn't even take me away. And that is that is a big thing of what I have brought from that experience for me, just in my personal life. Because, we come home from our trip and roof shingles in the driveway and siding in the yard and the whole porch torn apart because there had been a storm while we were away. And it was like, okay, like, focus on peace. Did it I had just traveled quite a bit. So I was like a little disrupted at first, but it was like, okay, you know what? This is all going to get fixed. A guy, and focus on peace. That it gave me like what that actually means. I think focus on peace. And I feel like it sits between my heart and my core,
Your solar plexus.
your solar plexus. Like it's within that region. And it was a beautiful experience. And the way he brought it was, like I said, so much more mild. And the way we gently, slowly, like, I don't know if I would have had to have been like gotten up, like if it would have, like if I had to go to the bathroom or something, my body could have worked, but my body was like, nah. It felt heavy,
Yeah.
heavy.
I agree.
So you want to share any of your experience?
Pretty similar for me. Like I said, well, I didn't say it. You almost said it. I told him as soon as we were done, because when he rang the bell, and it was just the two of us and the shaman. There was supposed to be 2 other people in our group, but because of the rescheduling and everything, they weren't able to make it. So it was like a private experience, just the 2 of us and shaman Jack. His wife was there too. She wasn't part of the ceremony, but we got to meet her. She was lovely. So I told him when we were done, we kind of just sat up, all 3 of us, because Shaman Jack did it with us and kind of was just there to guide us. But we talked about our experiences, and the first thing that I said was, I almost want to call this a being ceremony, because that's literally what just happened. And because I was so blown away at what time it was when we came out of it. Because I remember I took my hat off. I made sure I didn't have my phone on me. I even took my watch off. He didn't tell me to do anything like that. I took my watch off. I didn't want to have any sense of time. I didn't want to be like checking the time. I wanted to be completely immersed in the experience. And, so I checked the time one time. I think Jessica, she might have gotten up to go to the bathroom or something at some point early on.
Yeah. I didn't get up. I was getting my notebook to write.
Oh, well, whatever was going on, there was one point where my focus kind of came off, and I did look at what time it was, and it was 7:00. So at this point, it had been it's basically an hour since we had taken the brew. And that's the only time I looked at the clock. And then next thing I knew, it felt like it was like a finger snap. Like next thing I knew, he was ringing the bell, and it was 10:30. And like, I couldn't believe that, because I remember experiencing it, but it was like time dilation, man. Like truly, it just takes that filter of time and space and all those things away from you, and pulls that veil off of you. So mine was a very similar experience. It was extreme peace, an extreme form of just being. And I felt like it was the first time. The other thing that for me that was big was I think this might have been the first time that I truly was like able to just clear my mind. Mm-hmm. Like, we say how with meditation and everything, it's real hard you shouldn't try to just, clear your mind. You just become the observer of your thoughts. I felt like at one point I didn't have any thoughts. It was just pure, just existence and being. And it was pure peace, and very similar to what you felt also with the chatterboxes and the noises. There were some dogs on a nearby farm and stuff that would bark a little bit, or a truck every now and then would drive by. But it was like noises that I didn't even it got to a point where I didn't even register them. It was just like, this isn't affecting my peace. It's
not part of my focus, and I don't need to
worry about it or hone in on it. Yeah. So that was my experience. It was very deep. I will also say the last thing I'll say before we move on, but a good way to describe this, because it is very gentle. I would suggest this especially for anybody who's maybe never tried a psychedelic before, because it's a very, very gentle experience. So,
and they don't classify it as a psychedelic.
No, they don't. I guess I'm just calling that because of what we're talking about.
Yeah,
but
plant medicine.
Shaman Jack put it a really good way. he said if you compare it to like ayahuasca or something, or even maybe shrooms, but ayahuasca especially, it can be very intense. That has a more masculine energy to it. So it's more intense, aggressive, a little bit more heavy experience, I guess intense experience. Whereas this Havaka is much more of a female energy or presence. And think of it of like it being like, a woman wrapping her arms around you very
Divine
gently,
feminine.
the divine feminine. And so it is much more of a gentle, not aggressive experience. And it's actually the opposite of that. It's much more, it brings you to a real, true state of peace, which then has its lasting effects on you.
That's something that I think I realized the other day is the lasting effects of that. And like I had mentioned earlier, recognizing, that to avoid the noise, that don't focus on it. The more energy you pour into that disruption, the more that disruption is going to feel real and take you away from your peace. And like it gave me that tangible, I already knew that, but it was like a tangible lesson / reminder that I've brought with me.
Peace is a choice.
And it was good. It was a good experience.
Very good.
And
shout out to the shaman.
And AKA Chief Golden Feather.
Chief Golden Feather.
So something else I'd like to bring up is the breath work, actually, like how you can shift your consciousness without a substance. And we went to a healing retreat last year. And
it was a year ago.
Yep. And I remember I was ready. I was ready to dig deep. I had known there was some stuff that I had kind of repressed. I could feel it. And it had slowly been kind of coming to the surface to the point where I was almost consciously repressing it at that point. And I was not really sure what to expect, but I knew we'd be doing breath work. And
this was with Danny Morell, by the way.
Danny Morell. And
the conference was called Awaken.
And I later learned, it was holotropic breath work.
Yeah.
And so, okay, just you could literally sit. Since then, I kind of sat with myself and have done the same thing. But there is something to the atmosphere and the intention of everyone being there to heal and doing it at the same time.
Yeah.
And so breath work isn't just relaxing. And it does reset the nervous system, but it directly changes your oxygen levels, carbon dioxide levels, your blood pH, and as we just said, nervous system state. So your CO2 drops, and that is where an altered state comes in.
Mm-hmm.
So it's fast, deep breathing, like hyperventilation, lowers CO2 in your blood, changes the brain flow. This can cause, you might feel tingling, lightheadedness, and some visuals.
Which is called respiratory alkalosis.
Yeah. Thank you. Then, as we mentioned earlier, that default mode network disruption, just like psychedelics, intense breath work can reduce activity in that default mode network.
Your ego.
So the result of that is the loss of identity, boundaries, emotional release, and oneness feelings. You can have emotional plus trauma release. So your limbic system, which is where your emotions come from, and stored stress patterns, breath work activates these things. And you can, we experience this.
This is what the retreat was for.
Shake,
is what we're talking about right now.
Have vivid memories surface. And I personally, I remember, and I can't believe I'm really going into this, but I remember I had a guide with me, and they had my hand and they were leading me towards my memory. And I got to the point where I was like, no. I was like pulling away. And she was like, it's okay. It's okay. I'm with you. It's okay. And I went towards it. And then I actually experienced the memory. My body went through, like almost like reliving it. I did cry. I did shake. I felt energy moving from me and energy leaving my body. Like that stored trauma energy, the acknowledgement, I felt it leave. And this was all induced by breath work. And the body, like we talked about, there is DMT in our bodies. It can produce small amounts of DMT naturally, and some of this breath work can induce that.
Which I just want to say, just bringing up DMT, I meant to say this earlier when we brought it up. We did say it is found in your body, and DMT is what your brain floods itself with DMT at the moment of death. So it has a lot to do with when people have near-death experiences, or they see things, or they see, the different things people have reported seeing when they die and then they come back. DMT, your brain floods itself. It also, your brain also not necessarily floods itself, but that's also when you're dreaming too. There's DMT involved in that.
And that not necessarily just seeing things, but
No,
experiencing things.
but it's just the
because of that.
scientific, like we said earlier, it's not negating that it's a spiritual experience. It's just saying from a scientific, biological perspective, here's what's going on. And DMT has a lot to do with dreaming and or things that you see, near-death experiences and stuff. So they found it in the lungs, the brain, and possibly I wouldn't even say possibly, definitely the pineal gland.
Which AKA your third eye,
Yep.
pineal gland. So what we don't have proof, there's no solid evidence that breathwork releases large psychedelic level DMT, but I don't think that you necessarily need psychedelic level DMT to have beneficial effects, especially when you are when you're healing, when you are intentionally going in on healing past things, or anything you've been through. So it feels psychedelic because you're altering your brain chemistry naturally. It disrupts your normal perception and changes consciousness. You don't need DMT levels to get those effects.
DMT is also how plants communicate, by the way.
And probably how we can communicate with plants, because we also have it.
Yeah, they found large levels of DMT in most plants, and they've seen that that's kind of a way that they communicate with each other. Pretty crazy.
So different types of breath work that can induce some of these. The holotropic, as we said earlier, breath work, that's fast, rhythmic breathing plus music. And, music with the frequencies of music, you have to take that into consideration. What's the lyrical content? What's the music? What's the frequency? And then the fast, almost like very deep, fast breaths, kind of almost like hyperventilating.
It's almost uncomfortable at first when you first start doing it, because you are not used to breathing. Like, it's normally when you breathe fast, it's like shallow, fast breathing.
Deep.
This is deep and fast.
Yeah.
So it takes work.
And then, so that is known for deep emotional release, vision-like experiences, trauma processing. And that's the thing too. It's like experiencing it without experiencing it. Like, you have a sense of safety. The Wim Hof method, cycles of deep breathing plus breath holds, which I got it really into Wim Hof there for a while. That can stimulate euphoria, tingling, increased resilience. And you've got shamanic or circular breathing, which is continuous inhale, exhale with no pause. And that can produce trance states, visuals, body activation. Then you have your box breathing, which that's a little more of when I lead us through a breath in the beginning. I do have a couple holds, but box breathing is one inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Slow and
Inhale,
controlled.
1, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Creating like a box, and that is slow and controlled. And that's not going to produce psychedelic effects, but that is wonderful for regulating the nervous system.
Mhm.
And you get in, let's just go minor, but what we all experience, traffic.
Yeah.
Like, and you're getting worked up and you're starting to have road rage and it's getting your blood pressure higher. Do some box breathing and just calm down and like put on some music.
Some Bob Marley.
Don't worry about a thing. Because every little thing gonna be all right. So you don't always need a substance to leave your normal state of consciousness. Sometimes you just need to change your breathing. And our normal state of consciousness is getting up in the morning, doing the next thing in our routine, do the loop, go to work, get the kids off to school, pack the lunches, come home from work, feed the dogs, walk the dogs, go to the grocery store. And deal with people, or maybe not deal with people, but engage with folks.
No, let's be real. It's dealing with people. We
And-
all deal with people.
And some, yes. And so that's your normal state of consciousness. What we're talking about, altered states of consciousness, it's not a bad thing, a scary thing, a negative thing. It's stepping outside of that normal everyday loop and stepping outside into something a little bigger, greater, more vast. And then that's where you find answers, because that still small voice, it gets you quiet enough, silent enough, inward enough that you can then begin to get some of that guidance or just an overall sense of well-being. Like, wait, I see that a lot of this is orchestrated illusion. Just because something's an illusion doesn't mean you're not what your reality, what you put your attention on is your reality. So if you're focused on the negative or the disruption, that will be your reality and you will feel it.
It's altered perception. So it's simply put, it's like glass half full or glass half empty. It's the same glass, but how are you perceiving it?
Mm-hmm.
Or like putting on a different pair of glasses. I got a pair of regular sunglasses and then I got a pair of
rose-colored glasses.
There you go. So, it's no different than that. So it's
it's like taking off.
Like They Live.
Yeah.
That's also a really good one too. But yeah, it's absolutely like just changing your perception of things, putting on it, or like, watching TV. It's going from, an old grainy TV, resolution to
with a
HD,
lot of frequency interruptions
to like super smooth,
crystal
HD,
clear,
1080p, whatever, the 4K, it's like the difference between those things.
Yeah.
You can see more clear.
I can see clearly now. I've taken shrooms. Just kidding. Okay. All right. So just a important safety note. Some of these breath works can cause dizziness or
Absolutely,
fainting.
They can. I got kind of dizzy at a couple of points.
So maybe be
when we
laying
first did
down
that.
if you're going to try it.
Yeah.
And it's maybe not ideal if you have like a heart condition.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you just listen to your body.
Yeah.
Intuitively and physically, listen to your body.
It's the same with any of these other things we've talked about. Just be careful. Be careful and
always
and do
in
your
a
research.
safe environment.
Yeah.
And
let's talk about
some of I was going to say some of these things are becoming so mainstream, or at least a lot more accepted, that some of these, like, there's states where it's become legal or at least decriminalized.
Mm-hmm.
You want to run through like briefly those?
And I kind of I just thought this like 30 seconds ago. Maybe it's not considered a psychedelic or hallucinogenic, but if you have enough cannabis, it can become a psychedelic experience.
Especially
if you've not done it for a while and your tolerance is down. Yeah. Yeah. I just
you
wanted
use it as a master plant, and you're not just, it's not like a daily use thing, and you have a different relationship with it.
Mhm.
It can, yeah.
Yeah. Just something I wanted to add in there. So the states with some form of legalization or at the very least decriminalization for psychedelics, there's not a whole lot, you guys. There's Oregon. They have they're actually the first state to fully legalize supervised use in a clinical setting. So legal psilocybin therapy in licensed supervised settings. That is the only state that I'm aware of that they have legalized it in any way. It is illegal everywhere else, except Colorado has decriminalized all natural psychedelics. Notice natural.
Mm-hmm.
They have expanded or are currently expanding the regulated access to psilocybin, DMT, mescaline, all that kind of stuff. So California has some cities where they have decriminalized plant medicines, like Oakland and Santa Cruz. New York, they are currently in discussion over reform for all of that. Seattle and Washington, they have also decriminalized natural psychedelics. And then in Arizona, there has been limited research and therapy approvals emerging from that. So we are watching psychedelics move from old, underground ceremonies into clinical therapy rooms in real time. So yeah, so just a nice little list and that list is being added to as time goes by. I truly believe, especially once they start really putting these into use in clinical therapeutic settings, I think more and more states, just like with cannabis, I think it's going to be kind of a snowball effect. State by state is going to start doing it, and it probably will be medical use. I think it's going to be a while before.
It's going to be a minute before Indiana.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Which our governor actually right now is pushing all of the Republicans in our state right now. He's basically like, we're surrounded by states that it's legal now. Like, what are you guys doing? Like, he even said in an interview just literally a couple of days, he said half of our state already smokes it, and they're going across state lines to spend money elsewhere.
You're speaking of cannabis.
Yeah, I'm speaking of cannabis. So it'll get here soon enough.
Yeah. So, and that's a whole nother topic. We didn't even, because, you mentioned it could have some psychedelic effects. It is psychoactive, and it is absolutely a plant medicine.
Just different
category. Yeah. So there's the scientific view and the spiritual view. The scientific view, with psychedelics and plant medicines, brain networks are disrupted, or I'd say connected. You have your ego dissolves, and which leads to new perspectives. Spiritual view, access to higher dimensions, connection to source, and remembering truth, which, I think that it strips you down of, like I said, all your conditioning, all the things that were placed on you that are your shoulds, who you are, who you should be, what you should be doing. And it allows you to get in contact with source, all that is.
Yeah, because you were partaking of something that came from Mother Earth, and which is by extension came from God.
So something else very important with partaking in any of these plant medicines or psychedelics. Integration, yes. Without integration, there's no lasting change. And it's just like, oh, that was a fun experience. And integration is actually sitting with that. I will say the healing conference we went to, Awaken, I wish there would have been, they did have integration coaches there. I'll say that. I did not make use of that because I had to process everything, and I was a little taken aback by what I experienced. Integrate, work through it, process it, talk about it, and then And then I ended up going to someone for what they call soul retrieval. And she helped me kind of integrate that experience into my being. And I felt immensely, just releasing all that. I felt so much more confident and brighter. I actually have pictures. I have a picture, a before picture and an after picture of my face. And it was literally, my eyes are brighter. My countenance is brighter and than prior. And it was pretty amazing. And then with integration, your behavior can change, your healing happens, your identity shifts, those addictive behaviors that you haven't been able to break, those new neural pathways are formed because you've actually integrated the experience.
So the trip doesn't change your life. What you do after does.
Mm-hmm.
The trip is just the tool.
And that's why, like we're talking about, most of these things you want to do, unless you're going real easy, like you want to do with a guide or, with especially if you're going in with the intention on healing, because the guide is the one that can help you navigate and integrate that experience. And, maybe having some therapy lined up afterwards or
to help process all of that, because you might not be able to do it well enough on your own. And I just had a thought real quick that something I remember as far as like addiction therapy and everything goes, and utilizing some of this for people with various different addiction issues. I remember way back when I used to smoke cigarettes. I remember anytime we would do mushrooms, I had like no desire to smoke. It was just this feeling. It's almost like there's like those pharmaceuticals that you can take that basically make it to where, like, if you smoke a cigarette, you'll like throw up. It's like it reverses your body to where then your body like rewires to where it like doesn't want that anymore. It felt almost like that. Now, I didn't feel sick, but there was literally like, I remember specifically that it's like it took away that feeling.
It's because I think it taps you into your highest self. We haven't even mentioned that, but it's the divine within. It taps you into your highest self. You are kind of operating and thinking from your highest self, and your highest self knows it's a detriment to your body, really.
Right.
And then the other thing, phone usage.
Oh,
like I am always like, I don't like my phone touching me anyway. I try to keep it from being on my body if at all possible due to the EMFs, but I definitely, in those instances, I'm like, get it away.
I have typically zero
interest.
Interest. I'll a lot of times just leave it on the charger. I might check it once in a while, for
you
the
remember
time or something.
The one time that I created and performed a stand-up bit
routine.
Yeah, it's like I was performing it for Zach as I was writing it and creating it, and I was cracking myself up. I found that the other day, and I was like, I don't even know if I can fully follow this.
It's pretty funny. I remember laughing a lot.
Yeah,
it was really funny.
Good.
She was, it's
I am funny.
She is funny.
And then release all those other things. You connect those connectors and synapses and neural pathways, and I'm like, boom.
And then next thing you know, you've invented Apple, which that wasn't mushrooms, but close enough.
Yeah.
So that was good conversation today.
Well, I always have a special place in my heart for, especially the shroomies.
For planties.
For planties in general. Yes.
And like we said, the Bible even talks about all the plants are placed here for us, and we are simply the stewards, but they are tools. So maybe psychedelics aren't here to show us truth. Maybe they're here to show us how much of what we call reality is being filtered every second of every day.
And the real question isn't what you see when the filter drops. It's what you do when they come back on. So thank you for being here with us today. We thoroughly enjoyed it. because we can just feel your presence and your vibes while you're listening. And if you have any of your own personal stories or you have any questions, thoughts, give us an email. It's Zach and Jess.
Zach and ZACHANDJESS. So Zach and Jess at highlevel444.com is our direct email. If you have any kind of questions or any stories or anything for us concerning this,
it would help us out if you like, subscribe, rate if it's a 5-star review. Otherwise, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. But follow us on our social media. You can find that High Level Hairesy. And as always, this episode has been brought to you by High Level Design Salon and Barbershop. You can find any information about booking with us. If you need a crispy fade or fresh color, you can go to highlevel444.com and check us out on there. We've got pictures, prices, all that fun jazz.
contact info.
Yeah, our contact info. Also on our website, if you're heading to our website for that, you could also check out our t-shirt shop, which we've opened
the
recently.
New t-shirt shop.
And we have things like Glenda that says karma, dear, karma's only a bitch if you are. And our Michael Jackson tee from our last episode, and all kinds of fun little wear the message kind of t-shirts.
And we'll be adding more over time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure coinciding with episodes or something, but they're also just cool, funny. Sometimes they're funny, sometimes they're interesting, but they're all cool, and we'll add more, and maybe we'll do like limited drops or something here and there.
Well, like the Michael Jackson tee, and we do still have that discount code going, HLH15. That's HLH15 for 15% off the I Believe Michael Jackson tee. And then newly, we recommend so many products. We recommend products behind the chair when we're at work. And sometimes we talk about stuff on here. And so we have decided, we created the High Level recommendations page, also found on highlevel444.com, where you can find everything that we recommend, from hair products to supplements to
tools,
podcast gear, to to books. Many of the books, all the that we talk about and utilize, are on there. And those are actually, we're Amazon associates, so those are all sold through Amazon links, and we get a small commission at no extra cost to you, which just continues to help us keep putting this out there and helping raise the consciousness of the planet.
Yeah, go check those out. And we'll be adding to those as time goes by as well. But we've got all of the stuff that we use in the studio for podcast, also tools for the shop. I have a lot of guys that want to know about trimmers and clippers and shavers and stuff like that. So that's all on there.
Mm-hmm. And then last but not least, if you have any interest in Hayvaka and experiencing, you're like, oh, you know what? I was planning on going to Hawaii. You can look up Muisha Huel Pale, and that website is muaisa.org. And you can find information, their story about the plant, and their different offerings.
They're on the Big Island, by the way.
Yeah,
the
Kona.
island of Hawaii. They're in Kona.
So thank you again so much.
Until next time,
we leave you in the love and the light of the one infinite Creator.
May the Force be with you.
And also with you.
High Level Hairesy.